Hi, welcome to the Israel First television program from our studios in Jerusalem. Great to have you with us. Thank you so much for joining us today. We're the program that looks at the news from Israel, what's happening behind the scenes. We look at the end times. We look at what the Bible says. And Natalie's going to be sharing with us, I think, about Melchizedek, but I'm not sure. I think that's what she's going to be sharing on the topic, which is connected with the end times. Well, the news in Israel is an example for the world, and we're able to do this. We're able to come into your homes because of your kind support. So thank you so much for your support. We'll be letting you know in the program how you can continue to help us, how if you're not involved at the moment, that you can get involved, because the more people that are involved, the better to get the word out to the folks that we are in the last days, and this is going to be Israel is the center. And I just want to explain a little bit about that, because we say Israel first, but it is first not because of prejudice, not because of bias, but because this is the very place where the last day, the end time scenario is going to be played out.
Now, when you say end time, it's very important that we learn. Jesus was saying, Yeshua was saying that he was at the end time. So he was at the beginning of the end time, and we're at the end of the end time. So it's very important to understand that, to know where we are at. Here we go. I think it's very important, isn't it?
Yeah, and this is going to be the place. Jerusalem is the center. And and not because of bias, but because this is the place in the Bible where the whole scenario is played out. And by the way, we're talking about the judgment of the nations. That a lot of people are saying, well, there's so many things that have happened in history or are happening now which need sorting out, and we are going to see when the Messiah comes, the judgment, the first thing almost.
And when you speak about that, I'm jumping about Melchizedek. He was, after Abraham was fighting some kings in the north to rescue his nephew Lot. It's not that he wanted to be, and he was a man of peace, but he had to do war to bring peace. And when he come back, he meet Melchizedek, which was the king of Salem, which was, when we look and study, is Jerusalem. So again, it was just there. It was like almost, like history repeats itself. It comes in one way and then in a bigger wave and in a bigger wave. And this was what was happening. Abraham was fighting the wicked, was rescuing, in a way, it was like redeeming his Lot, his nephew. And then he was blessed by Melchizedek, which was in Jerusalem. So again, it was just all there. It's just amazing. And we can see that we are in his story, and it's his story.
Yeah, and we've been talking about in the program the New World Order, the One World Government, what's going to happen with Jerusalem and the One World Government and New World Order interest in here, and what's happening with artificial intelligence, etc., and all the other different things that are coming up on the scope. Well, one of the things, if you've been watching the news from Israel, when we've come into the studio, is that there have been Israeli army actions in the Jenin, which is a city in the north of Israel, and a lot of the news networks have had correspondence covering it, especially into the city, and there has been an action by the Israeli army against the terrorists. So I found a very interesting story regarding what was happening, Nathalie. It says, and this is what the story says, it says, this was in Ynet News, which is one of the news sources in Israel. It says, ex-IDF chief, that's the most senior Israeli Defense Force person in the country, and he's a former chief of staff, says Israeli army possesses matrix-like capabilities former head of the Israeli army, Lieutenant General Avi Kovacki, tells Israeli News that they have this matrix ability now, the highest level of intelligence which can pinpoint terrorists and apprehend them, and where apprehension is impossible to then strike them. The digital, listen to this, the digital connectivity between the Israeli army branches and various units has been, according to General Kovaci, has been greatly improved. And this is his exact words. Among all the technological revolutions, artificial intelligence, which is something we've been talking about on the program, artificial intelligence is likely to be the most radical. The IDF recognized this field years ago, that's the artificial intelligence field, and harnessed it to enhance combat effectiveness. One example of this is the Targeting Directorate, established 3 years ago. It is a unit comprised of hundreds of officers and soldiers, powered by artificial intelligence capabilities. It is a machine that processes vast amounts of data faster and more effectively than any human, translating them into actionable targets. In Operation Guardian of the Walls, once this machine was activated, it generated 100 new targets every day. Well, you may be asking, what is the matrix and how does that relate to the Israeli army? Well, the matrix he's talking about the film because there are mathematical matrix or plural matrix. The matrix is in connection with what General Kavaki was saying. The matrix is a computer-generated virtual reality. That is a computer simulation using artificial intelligence. And this is what the IDF did in Jenin. I personally believe that they built a computer generated Jenin camp. And the whole thing was built as a simulated virtual reality. Now, for us old folks, we're not so familiar with that, but for the younger people, they'll understand that it's like these computer games. So it would be something like you see on the computer games and something like you see in the film The Matrix. So they built something like this. Now, why is this so relevant? Because it's artificial intelligence. We've been talking about this in previous programs in Israel, the huge increase in the use of artificial intelligence, including the Nimbus computer system, which is running all the government programs. Now, what does the artificial intelligence do? Well, there's various things. Number one is warfare systems. This includes weapons, sensors, navigation, aviation support, and surveillance. They used air tactics in Jenin, which is unheard of since the Second Intifada. Drone swarms. Now, we've talked about this before, but it's something very important. Something I've been talking about in our daily news updates, and you can get those at the website. I've been talking about the drone swarms, and it's one of the most important military applications of artificial intelligence. It involves leveraging intelligence from drones, and rather than there being a single drone, which would be over a city or over a military target, there is a whole swarm, and the drones actually speak to each other in the swarm, and they have their own capability of making decisions and
firing.
Yeah, they are armed drones, or suicide drones, I think is the name that they've been given in the Israeli news. They were using suicide drones. Now, these drones are all connected to each other. They can act independently, and it is a very concerning thing to see this kind of technology being used. Now, the other thing, or number three, is the strategic decision making. In history, the strategic decision making was done by generals, by the people, by officers, by those in charge in the battlefield. But now with artificial intelligence, the intelligence isn't done on the field, but is done on computers, and they collect huge amounts of data which is the next point, number 4, the data processing. They are able to process huge amounts of data are pushed into the computer. And these simulations can be built over years, Nathalie. They can start to build a computer simulation of anywhere. In Jerusalem, for example, can be simulated on a computer. Streets, houses, they can use cameras. Remember, the drones have cameras as well. They're not just explosive devices, but they have a camera where they can film. So they have real-time film of all the streets, and this can be added into this huge matrix. And the matrix basically is putting all this data together and assembling a reality, which is I've never heard of this before. This matrix reality being used in a warfare situation. Why is it so important for us watching the end times, watching what's going on? Because this is exactly what's happening in Israel and around the world. That more and more, I mean, China is a very good example of the matrix being used on a very minute detail with its cameras and drones and surveillance and various things they do to control the population. Mm-hmm. It's basically the matrix in operation. Target recognition was used. Normally in a battlefield, the target recognition will be those who are on the front lines. But in this particular case, it was artificial intelligence that was sending information to those on the front lines from this computer simulation. And the other thing was threat monitoring. In other words, if someone had a grenade or had a gun and was coming from around a corner, the artificial intelligence would send the messages to the front line. Now, what is very
even I was reading, like, people who are writing a thread, writing in their social net, they will pick that up too.
Yeah, so all the social media feeds are put into in live, real time. All the feeds are not, fed like we would imagine, like you feed paper into a printer. They are fed via data. So the actual feed goes into the computer, so the computer can see the feed. That's the stage we're at, where it's reading all the different live Twitter, TikTok, Facebook,
Instagram,
all the social media that's produced in the warfare situation, that's giving information. Any information is put into the machine and is used as any other. So news that's being produced, bulletins, as well as all the other intelligence data that they have. So all this data is processed into one huge machine, which the IDF have, and that's how they're able to do this matrix thing. Now, what is very interesting, I'm not so aware of how many casualties the IDF had, but the one fatality was not the result of enemy fire, but was the result of friendly fire. In other words, an accident whilst they were shooting from IDF soldiers. So the only fatality, Nathalie, was that of somebody being shot by their own people. That's the stage it's got to. Somebody said, I read somewhere, that it's almost like science fiction that the terrorists were firing with Stone Age equipment and they were fighting against this kind of Star Wars situation. So again, it is very concerning, because this is all in place for the New World Order, the One World Government. This is all there. This whole matrix situation, this whole control of populations, this artificial intelligence, which many people say, oh, well, that's very good because it's helping us. We talked about the traffic management systems for traffic lights in Israel and for managing the traffic. But, this is controlling people. And we weren't talking last time about, Nathalie was saying about the traffic penalties that are being done by cameras now and not by actual police officers. They're more and more relying on the system.
And it's very, very interesting what you are saying, because I was studying about Abraham and I thought, okay, what was he doing? It's just written in the Torah, that he was going to fight these 4 kings, and he's like up north, close to Damascus, I mean, up north. And I was searching in different writing what it was, and because Abraham was a shepherd, he had people who was with him, but they were armed with like rods and shofarot, and they had to ask God to help them. They couldn't do it. Abraham and his men couldn't do it by themselves, because the king were very, very strong. And if I understand everything, this seems to have been also relative to giants. So again, it was a spiritual battle, all right? Because we need to see the thing also in the spiritual realms. And then after he came back, and first of all, he had victory. He has the spoil. He come back, and he gave the tens to Melchizedek, and but he didn't want to have anything to have to do with Sodom, because he knew that he was not right. But Melchizedek means my king is righteous. So obviously he was on that side. Again, it's like a battle between light and dark and darkness. And we are again in this in this war of darkness and light. And again, I was reading some other, because we are really trying to find more like a script and manuscript who was written after the Torah, and they find things in the manuscript of the Dead Sea Scrolls, and they find a Melchizedek book, and it's called, if you want to look and find out, you can do your own research, and it's called in the Dead Sea Scrolls 11Q Melch for Melchizedek. And then you can read the manuscript, and they were speaking about Melchizedek, and that, interesting enough, he will reappear, or he will be there at the end of the days. So when you look in the Tanakh, in the Old Testament, in the Torah, is written only twice in Genesis 14, where we're speaking about 20s with Abraham, and suddenly you jump into the Psalms, and it's Psalm 110, and David speak about Melchizedek, that you will be priest in the order of Melchizedek. And it's like the Lord speak to Adonai. So again, it's like, is the psalm who is the most spoken about or written about in the New Testament. Or we can say, when we say New Testament, is like the writing of the apostles, the writing of the disciples, which was very important, because they were like testimony of what was happening with Yeshua. Now, when you look at also at all these things, when Yeshua was, so we spoke about the end of days, and at the end of days, Jesus came at the end of days. Okay, let us say it again. You have like the menorah, 7 branches. We have 7 millennia. 2 was chaos, which was from creation to Abraham. And then Abraham say, okay, I believe in God. So from Abraham to the birth of Jesus, funny enough, it was the Torah time, 2 millenniums too. And Yeshua, when he was born, was the beginning of the end time, 2000 again. So it's like 2000, 2000, 2000, okay? And then we have Shabbat, which is the 7th day, and where we will have the millennium with the kingdom on earth, where we're waiting. And when you look in Revelation, you have that. Then you have at the end of the millennium, again, a fight against Satan, and it will be new earth and new heaven, and we will go into something new. So we need to have this big view of the time on the earth, of what God has done is his story, and we need to see that to be able to pinpoint now where we are. So When Jesus was coming, if you remember, we were speaking about that last time, about John the Baptist. John the Baptist was, as Jesus said, the last prophet, and even more than that, because we discovered that he might have been, he seems to have been the high priest, and it's because of that Jesus go to him. And if you look again, in very interesting, in Matthew 3:15, John the Baptist said to Jesus, no, you are coming to me, it's me who should come to you. And he said, no, we have to do all the things according to righteousness. Righteousness, tzedakah, Melchizedek. Tzedakah, righteousness, it needs to be done in the order that God is putting in place, because there is something happening. It's just amazing, is after many years of studying, there is more things shown. And the very important things now is that also, because so you have to look the spiritual side, and you have to see also what is happening. And right now, so we saw a lot of things with the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have a lot of manuscript that was extra from the Torah, but giving more understanding of the history. And it's just amazing. So we find this manuscript about Melchizedek, but also, which is amazing, in the city of David, so it's just south of where the Temple Mount, Temple Mount is, they find there a very old altar, which seems much before the temple, which is much before David, which might have been, and is what the archaeologist Eli wait, I need to say his name properly, because you can do some research if you want. His name is, I write it somewhere, Eli Sucron. Okay, Eli Sucron is the archaeologist who've done a lot of studies and find in 2011 this old altar, and with some places where they were doing sacrifices and this and that, and it was hidden after, but it wasn't destroyed. And he is really wondering if this was the altar for Melchizedek, which was, again, he was giving sacrifices and to the Almighty, okay? It wasn't to a God, it was to the true God. So all of that, so he find that in 2011. So suddenly, and he called this place Temple Zero, because we have the first temple, we have the second temple, and he said, but wait a minute, there was some history before, and it's Temple Zero, which make us connect with Melchizedek, which make us connect with Abraham, and Abraham is the father of our faith. And so again, you look in, interesting enough, Melchizedek, the name, is said a lot in Hebrews, in the book of Hebrews, in the writing of the apostles, and so he was speaking there again about the order of Melchizedek, and he was saying how we are connected, and that we are. There is a beautiful passage. Maybe let me read it, because it's just amazing. So it's in. Oh yes. So it's in Hebrew. No, sorry. I'm going to read you another passage where, because when we see what God intended to do, it was that we were a kingdom of priests. Kingdom is king. Priest is Kohanim. It's different, but he wanted a kingdom of priests. And he said that in Exodus 19 to the Jewish people who were just coming out of Egypt. And it was at Sinai, just before he was giving the 10 Commandments. So the desire of God was that they will be a kingdom of priests. And he didn't go exactly as he should have been. And then, but it was still the attention of God. So when Yeshua came, he was again in the order of Melchizedek. And so let us read, and after I finish, just to show you also in 1 Peter 3, and it's so beautiful. No, it's 1 Peter 2, sorry. 1 Peter 2, 9. And I can tell you, I can speak like for 2 hours about all these things because there is so much. It's just amazing. And it makes us know who we are in front of his throne. We are people of his lightning. So, but you are a chosen people, the king's Kohanim, the king's priest, a holy nation, a people for God to possess. Why? In order for you to declare the praises of the one who called you out of darkness, is what we're speaking about, into his wonderful light. So, again, Melchizedek and Yeshua is like all part of, we are sons of darkness. Sorry, we are sons of light, and we're fighting the son of darkness. And at the end of the time, and we are coming at the end of the time, we're very close to Shabbat. We're going to see this fight, and we are seeing this fight of darkness and light. And you are speaking about Daniel, and you can see again the son of the light who is going to rise at the end of time, and the sons of the darkness will be judged and wiped out. And so this is where we are. It's just amazing to see the big plan that God has. He took his time, very patient, but we are coming at his fulfillment of all prophecies.
Yeah, and the reason Jerusalem is so important, another reason, is that it is two. Jerusalem is plural.
You're right.
In Hebrew. Mm-hmm. It's not singular. Mm-hmm. Well, there's how can there be two Jerusalems? Is it like there's another one in America or another one in Canada? No, the issue is there's a heavenly Jerusalem and an earthly Jerusalem, and I believe it's in the Knesset. There's a painting actually of the heavenly Jerusalem over the earthly Jerusalem, and the Bible says that the heavenly one comes down out of heaven. So we know that there's a heavenly Jerusalem and an earthly Jerusalem, and a connection. You know, there was the ladder into heaven from Bethel, and it was connecting the heavenly Jerusalem and the earthly Jerusalem. And we know the heavenly Jerusalem is bigger, so when it comes down out of heaven, it's going to be much bigger than the earthly Jerusalem is at the moment. And it's all the reason why this is all building up. And it's almost like a pressure cooker, you know, the pressure on the world as we're coming more and more for this final conflict, and which will result in the judgment of the nations. And we are building and building and building, and so all the things that are happening are in this direction, you know. And Yeshua talks about wars and rumors of wars. That all these things, these are the birth pangs of his return. And that, you know, he says, as in the days of Noah, people were marrying and getting married right up until Noah entered the ark. In other words, there was a type of normality. It may not have been normal, and it certainly wasn't normal even at the days of Noah. It was abnormal, but this was happening right up to the time of Noah getting into the ark, and it's going to be right up to the time of the return of Yeshua. And that is just like in the wise and foolish virgins, who the wise were ready and the foolish weren't, and the foolish were asking the wise for the oil. So this is all going to happen, Nathalie. We're all in this season of everything getting ready for the return of the Lord, for the final judgments for the nations. And it's going to be, you know, one of the things is,
and they will have shalom.
Yeah, one of the things is people talk about is about heaven, and you know, God's plan is to have heaven on earth, that the New Jerusalem doesn't go up, but you know, the old Jerusalem doesn't go up, but the New Jerusalem comes down out of heaven. And it talks about in the Bible about a new heavens and a new earth where righteousness abode, so that this is going to be where we are. You know, this is going to be where the future is, the new heavens and the new earth. So this is what we are preparing for and getting ready for. So all the news stories that I particularly picked them because they are to illustrate how things are developing in this direction, and how things, in the world, why things are happening as they are, because we need to be those who have eyes to see and ears to hear. Well, as I said at the beginning of the program, we really appreciate your support. We have a donate page where you can stand with us, where you can support us, and if you'd like to financially support the work that we're doing, enable us to do these programs, enable the programs to go around the world, then please do get in touch with us if you need help. We do have a PayPal solution you can use, and there's other things. I think I can even maybe use Stripe now, and you can donate directly to the bank account in America or in the United Kingdom, whichever, or even in Israel, we can give you the information. So thank you so much for joining us today, and we are very grateful that you are supporting us, and thank you to those who made this program possible. And remember, with a program that looks at the land, the people, and the language.